Good morning, everyone. I'm just picking up, just opening up the chat and the Q&A so that we're all ready to go. So welcome to this morning's Career-pucino. Hopefully you are raring to go for a 20-minute boost for postdoc kind. I've got my cup of coffee ready, hamster mug today. Morning. My name's Emma Williams, and today's topic is ideation. So how can we come up with ideas? Now, we've got 20 minutes. I've got lots and lots of ideas on the subject. So it will be a whistle-stop tour. But if you want to take any of those things further, then just, drop me a line or contact me over Twitter or anything else so that we can have those conversations. That would be amazing. Any questions, please do pop them in the chat. I've got the Q&A open as well, but the chat means that we should be able to see everyone what's going on there. So hopefully that would be the best way to ask a question. Right, let's dive in. I've got some slides really just to keep me on track because this is one of my favourite topics. I love creativity and I love different ways of getting my brain into gear when it comes to getting ideas. And obviously, as researchers, we are in the business of ideas. That's how it works. So how do we come up with them? So let's have a think. First of all, when we're coming up with an idea, we need to answer the question, how might we? How might we come up with a cure for cancer? How might we get this nuclear reactor to work? How might we investigate social constructs? Whatever our research, we start with the question, how might we? And actually, if we think about it in those terms, we've got the how, very solution focused, what, kind of really, really practical. So we're not just creating ideas to go nowhere. We're creating ideas to do something with. So very solution focused. So how? The might, let's be optimistic on a Monday morning about what we can do. So I think when we're coming up with ideas, we need to be in an optimistic frame of mind. If we're already narrowing our thoughts down, it's really not going to work at all. So let's think about how we might do things, reaching for those stars, and hugely collaborative. For the most part, research is collaborative. Now, I know that there are people working on solo projects. Mathematics leaps to mind, for instance. But we still have to convey those ideas to other people. And so there is an element of us not being by ourselves. And thinking about collaborative, this is where I think ideas can really spark. So we can have things going round and round in our head. But if we have conversations, if we share our ideation process with others, I think there is huge clarity in those conversations, but also an amazing power. So don't forget that if you're stuck, go and ask for help, okay? Other researchers get stuck too, and talking to people, talking things through, I find is hugely, it sparks things off, or listening to a podcast, or going and reading a book, or even just going for a stroll. All those things can prompt our ideas. But for me, talking to others is a real key. So thinking, whenever you think, right, I need some ideas, how might we? That needs to be your mantra. So I'm going to go through some tools that I've found helpful. It will be a whistle-stop tour, but if you're particularly interested in anything, then just drop me a line and we can have a little bit more of a conversation. So thinking about, as researchers, we're in the innovative process, aren't we? We need to come up with new. And that new doesn't have to be earth-shatteringly huge. It might just be, how do we do the next iteration of my experiment? And where the ideas come in are in two places in this double diamond model of innovation. So we've got the discovery phase, where necessarily we open up lots of questions. We need lots of ideas to try different things. And then we discover that actually that particular iteration kind of blows up the experiment. So we go through a definition stage. And so we hone our research question, if you like. So we've opened it up, and then we've gone round around the track here, and then we've come back to really being able to ask a specific question. And then we need to develop our ideas around that question. And again, we go round around the track till we come to a delivery point. That delivery point might be, I don't know, conference presentation, it might be a paper, it might be a patent, whatever it might be for your own research. But at certain points, we need to open up our minds. We need to come up with ideas. Now, my background's physics, and so we can start ideation in a very structured way. And as a physicist, you think I'd like this. I actually like more lateral thinking type things. But let's start with the structure to start with. So if we're coming up with an invention in a structured way, we're going to be very logical. It's going to have a good structure. It's going to take what we know and take that forward. Okay. For me, I think it fits with my scientific training. You know, we're kind of very methodical. We've written things down. We've gone from A to B to C. It can be fantastic at improving things. So the next iteration of your research will be better than the last because you've polished all the aspects of it. The downside is that if we're starting with something and making it better, we're very seldom going to come up with something completely new and sparkly. There's room for both in research, so I wouldn't worry too much. This is a great place to start. And one of the best places to start, if you're going to go through this, is something called a Zwicky box. So Fritz Vicki was a Swiss astronomer, and I see that we have someone from Switzerland on the call this morning, so you're very welcome. And basically, all this is a big grid. For those of you familiar with matrices, it's one of those. For the rest of us, it's effectively, you could put this in a big Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so it's not particularly challenging or innovative, but it is quite inventive in its own way. So what Vicki did was he combined two things: attribute listing and a morphological analysis. Hard to say. So the attributes, what do we mean by that? So if we take biscuits, because we have coffee, so biscuits are a good one. So our attributes of our biscuit or cookie might be flavour, hands up for chocolate. They might be shape. So are they going to be circles? Are they going to be squares? It might be texture. Are we going to go for a gooey cookie or a really crumbly biscuit? So those are our attributes. Then what we do is for each of those attributes, we list the permutations. So for shape, we can have round, we can have square, we can have rectangle, we could have triangle. I've run out of biscuit shapes. We could have smiley face shapes, all sorts of things. Those are our attributes, and we're going to list every permutation of them. We do that for each attribute. So coming back to cookies, we've got shape, we've got flavour, we've got texture, all sorts of things we could go for. And then we've got big long lists of permutations that we can then go through. On the internet, there are actually places where you can go and you can type in these permutations, or you could put it in a spreadsheet. I'm sure you could all do that. But it's great for thinking, oh, actually, I've never thought about a triangular, orange-flavoured, crunchy biscuit before. I might try that. Obviously, you could see that it would extend to more scientific or more research questions, but it can be a great way of thinking, well, why don't we ever vary that? Why do we always go with triangle as opposed to square? So it is very, very simple, and yet it might uncover the gaps in our knowledge. When we were moving house, we were trying to look for where to move, and in the end, we just effectively mapped out circles around train stations because that's where we needed to live. And suddenly we saw a village that we'd never considered before. Not for any particular reason, we just missed it. And this is what I think the Vicki box can do for you. It can really come up with, oh, I've missed that one. Why don't we try that? Let's see what happens. So you could get quite brave with it. So the Vicki box is very, very systematic. It's well up there on the structured innovation. Another thing which might not strike you as structured to start with, but I think it definitely does, is turn things upside down. So what is the opposite of what you're trying to do? So if we thought perhaps of something like a chair. Okay, so our assumption is chairs have legs. That seems to be, I'm looking at my chair down here, I'm not sat on it, but I'm looking at it. Chairs have legs. The opposite of that would be, right, chairs have no legs. Okay. So we're taking an assumption about our research, and every discipline is surrounded by assumptions. You can't do this, you can't do that. In my own discipline of magnetic resonance imaging, we were told that we couldn't possibly take an infusion pump for a patient that gives the drugs into the magnet. Well, we managed to. We had to be very safe about it, but we managed to get it to work. So sometimes what's accepted in the discipline, we need to push those boundaries. And it's still a structured approach because you're taking what exists. So I've got chairs have legs. I'm going to turn that upside down. Complete rethink. Chairs have no legs. So now what are my solutions? Well, there's the beanbag solution, my favorite for reading a book. Swinging chairs probably need a very sturdy tree, or perhaps a strong ceiling, or let's go for the physicist option of the magnetic hover chair. Okay, so some silly examples, but by taking on board what we assume, switching it upside down and going, right, what do I have to do to make this, completely different? Can open up some possibilities. Now, these might not be practical possibilities, but they might spark ideas. And this is what this particular exercise I think is really good at. You can also play this game with your career. So you can say, what would I have to do to fail at my next step? And list all those things. So you're looking at abject failure, you're looking at no job, no money for coffee, serious stuff. What would I have to do to fail? And list those things. Now, chances are you're not doing those things, but you might have behaviours that overlap on some of those things. And so it can be a great way of getting those ideas flowing and realising the assumptions that we make day to day in our discipline. Every discipline will have its own assumptions. So I'm a big fan of opposite thinking, especially for the magnetic hover chair. Okay, I did mention this is a whistle-stop tour of my favourite tools, didn't I? Okay, hopefully you're still with me. Much needed coffee this morning. Another way of looking at it is a reframing matrix, and this comes from the world of business. And in a business, we might come up with an idea, and we would look at it from the HR point of view, from the customer point of view, from the fabrication point of view, from the legal point of view. Every company has lawyers. We would look at it from different aspects. In a university, pictured in the middle here, we can look at it from different viewpoints. quite often our viewpoints are disciplines. Like I say, one discipline might have assumptions, but another one will have a completely different set of assumptions. So by looking at an idea or a problem from different perspectives, it might be uncover something that you've never thought of in and of yourself. So I've just put 4 different disciplines here: physics, my own, biology, chemistry, maths. If I present a problem, then I'm going to get some very different takes on it. This is best played with other people. And it might not be that you are completely separate. So you might be playing this with people in your research group, but you will all have a very different route to where you are now. So you'll have different experiences, and it's coming with that abundance of insight from that life trajectory that you can perhaps give a different opinion. So the best way to play this is to present the problem and then let people write their own take on it, with no further input from you, not going, and I'm not sure about this, if I do that, or but. It's just to get their viewpoint. What you want is an objective viewpoint without you colouring it in. And that can really help elucidate, I haven't thought of that before. If there are 4 or 5 of you who want to play this game, then each of you can present a problem pretty much on the middle of a piece of paper or on the Zoom equivalent, and then pass that paper around. So you're going to get 4 viewpoints on your problem. They're going to get 4 viewpoints on their problem. So it can be very collaborative. Again, coming back to this, how might we, the collaborative bit. So I really do recommend this. If you are in a multidisciplinary setting, then again, it's capturing that insight from other people who have different training, are disciplines, trainers in certain ways to think. And so we might get insight. And that's what innovation is, isn't it? It's an insight, it's a little window. And then hopefully that's a spark that will then go off to, okay, I could do this, this, and this. Okay, and my last favourite way of generating ideas is the random input idea. So I asked my 15-year-old for some random inputs, and this is what you get from a 15-year-old mind. So I got a crab, a saxophone, and a gummy bear. Quite what we're supposed to do with these, I'm not sure. But the idea behind random input, so hopefully I've taken you on whistle-stop tour from very structured through to this is the other end. This is complete lateral thinking. And why does random input work? There's an apocryphal story, so a story that might not actually be true, that Campbell's Soup, a big soup manufacturer here in the UK, were looking at new soup ideas. And so they were just trying random things to try and come up with new ideas. And one of the random words that they used was fork. And someone said, well, you can't eat soup with a fork. And then someone said, well, you could if it was chunky. And their range of chunky soups was born. Now, whether that's true or not, I think random inputs can be helpful because they can help us have that eureka moment, that bathtub moment of an idea. So it might be that we're looking at the purple crab, and we're not thinking necessarily about crabs, but we're thinking purple. Purple's royalty. Okay, royalty. So actually, my research could look at kingdoms of things. It's opening up those little chains in our mind. Human brain is an amazing thing, and we can link things together. So given a random input, we might make some new links because we're very good at going down the same chain. And why the random thing is, it starts a new chain, and we don't know where that will go. Random inputs you can do with words. You can do with photos. For me, photos are really powerful because there's lots of content in there. So different people will latch onto different things. So again, if we're doing it collaboratively, we'll have all those different things. Or we could use sounds, music, play whatever's on the top of your Spotify list and see what ideas come from that. So random input, I think, can be very powerful, especially if you're really stuck, partly because it's a complete break, but partly because it will start those new chains of thought. Even if they don't go anywhere, you've had time away from the structured way that you might be thinking about your research. So you come back to it in a fresh light. Everyone knows that if you go for a walk, then you come back a bit more invigorated. Random input can do the same thing for the idea bits of your brain. We have reached 20 minutes past 11. I told you it was a whistle-stop tour. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, if something has intrigued you, then do email me and we can take that conversation a little bit further. Other ways to do this or to take this further are to look at my blog or look at my YouTube channel and subscribe there. Hopefully, if no one has any questions, I'm going to wish you a very, very productive week. I hope you come up with tons of ideas. If you try some of these, let me know. I'd be intrigued to find out what works for you. Always love to hear from researchers. Otherwise, if there are no questions, have a fantastic week with lots of ideas.